And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with you this morning. We are so happy to welcome Amy Miller from Ohio Means Jobs. Good morning.
Good morning.
Amy, how's it looking as far as jobs and employment in our community?
You know, the jobs are looking good. There are a lot of people that are working now. The unemployment rate is fairly low. I mean, lower than it's been in a very long time. So we're really seeing some positive things with employment. We're seeing a lot of, one of the things that we look at is how many employers are working with us. And there are so many employers working with us. So it's really good to see that kind of growth and that kind of interest from employers to, they got to find people that are qualified and great employees. So it's looking really good.
How does that look? I mean, what does that look like as far as an employer contacting you? Maybe there are some employers saying,
Sure.
"Oh, I didn't realize I could be using them. This might help."
Yeah, well, what an employer does is they can place a job order with us. What we do is just the basic human resources screening. So we make sure that the individuals that we send to them are qualified. And we don't send people, we send the resumes. It's up to the employer to then follow up with those job seekers and interview them if they want. Again, there is no charge for any of the services that we provide, and that's whether it's for a job seeker or an employer. Again, this is taxpayer dollars that fund our agency, so no matter who you are, you're able to utilize our services.
Let's go back and let's just emphasize that. Our tax dollars pay for the agency.
Yes.
So you don't have to be unemployed or not a taxpayer to be using them. It's actually, you're for everyone, yes?
Yes, that is a very, very good point. Whether you're working, whether you're not working, whether you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or not even a high school diploma, it doesn't matter. Those services are available for you to use and to, there's a lot of things that go on with employment. Maybe you just don't like your job and you're ready to make a change. One of the things is a great saying is that it's easiest to find a job when you have a job.
Oh, I say that all the time.
Yeah. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'll quit. Then I'll have more time to job search. Please don't do that, folks. That's really a bad idea because you never know how long that stretch of unemployment is going to last. And remember, you have no resources coming in during that time. So look for a job when you have a job, and you can use us to do that.
And I think as an employer, you feel good knowing that someone is already a good worker, that someone that maybe they're just looking for a change, they just need a new challenge or whatever.
Right.
And they have nothing bad to say about their current employer, just need to make a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That kind of a person is very I think, attractive, don't you think, to employers?
Yes, because they've already proven they have a work ethic. They're going to work, they've been going to work, and they want to continue working. And, one of the things that I hear from people that get another job is say, well, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to quit. Well, don't do that either. Telling an employer that you're interviewing with that you would have to give a 2 weeks notice, that just really takes you up even another level because they know that you are a professional and that you care not just about them and the job you're getting, but the job that you have. That's a really good thing. So don't think that you can't.
Should your current employer know that you're looking, or should you kind of keep that to yourself for a while?
I think that's really dependent on your relationship with your employer and your relationship to the job itself. Is it a good thing to tell them that you're looking for another job? Where a lot of people get sticky is that they're afraid they're going to get fired. And that is legitimate, unfortunately. Sometimes an employer is going to be like, oh, well, you're looking for another job? I'm done with you. So it really depends on the situation. But a lot of employers are very supportive of people and want them to have other opportunities. Plus, if they don't know that you're looking for a job, something to think about is that they can't counter. They might want to keep you and not realize that you're unhappy. Are you making it known what you want from your employment? Sometimes they can do something and sometimes they can't. That's not a bad thing. That's just the reality of a particular job.
It just opens up a conversation that probably needed to be had.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is going on with the age of the workforce right now? Because I'm thinking, a lot of times you worked your 30, 35 years or whatever, you retired, you passed the torch on to the younger generation. Now you've got a lot of baby boomers and millennials working together in a workplace together, very different approaches to work. And what are you seeing in that respect?
Well, this is the first time in the history of the United States that we've had 5 generations in the workplace at the same time. I mean, can you believe that?
That's
There's
amazing.
5 generations. So you do have people that have very different outlooks on work, on how you communicate, on how a job is done. And that can be a positive or a negative. And I think where it can be a positive is if you look to learn from each other. I think that on both sides of any of the generations, we tend to look at the negative. There's this misconception that the baby boomers are rigid, that millennials are flaky, that they're just going to up and go at any point in time. But there is so much that we can learn from each other. And I think that a well-rounded workforce has got a little bit of everything. If you're only looking at one generation, you're only targeting one generation as your employees, you're missing out on so much more that's out there. And I think that one of the things we hear about baby boomers and about traditionalists, which is the generation before the baby boomers, is that, well, they're just too rigid, that they're not going to do that. And that, like I said, that is a misconception. They have knowledge, they have experience. There is so much that those people that have the experience bring to the table. I think that employers, the misconception is also that, well, they wouldn't want maybe an entry-level job, or they wouldn't want to come to work for my company. Well, maybe they're in a different spot, that they're ready to do something different, that they're willing to start out. You just, I think maybe that's the word. Don't assume, folks.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, no matter what generations you're from, don't assume that the person sitting in front of you is wrong in the way they work, in the way they communicate, and how they work with the public.
That's wisdom speaking right there. And what also is funny about the baby boomer generation, you used to work until you were 65 and then you retired and, played with grandkids. There's a lot of people, they want it all. Baby boomers have always wanted it all. And now they're working until they're 65. And then instead of retiring, they're retiring. But then they're just going with chapter 2 and playing with grandkids.
Yes.
They're figuring out a way to do all of it. And it's just, that's different, isn't it, now in the workforce? They're not going away.
Right. In the early 2000s and 2000, kind of 2000 through 2010, there was a lot of speculation that there was going to be crisis in workforce because all the baby boomers were going to retire. Who was going to fill all of their spots? There was a lot of concern on, retraining. How do we get people into these positions? Well, that's kind of gone away. Not that they don't think baby boomers and Gen Xers aren't going to retire, but that they're staying longer. You have people that are staying into their 70s and they're perfectly happy and they're doing the job that they've always done, and that's great for them. So I think that that's where you get the benefit of having the different generations together, because you do have the knowledge from each side. We can learn so much from each other, and sometimes we don't take advantage of that.
Well, and I think misconceptions as well, as you said,
Yes.
because not every millennial is going to be flaky and want to work completely from home and only work for, 2 days a week and then, have donuts delivered all the time.
Yeah.
But and not every baby boomer refuses to use a computer or learn social media and so forth. You have to know the individual, the person, and when you're assembling your team, that's what you've got to look at, isn't it?
Right.
What should an employer keep in mind to have a good, balanced team?
I think you need to keep in mind that everybody brings something different to the table, and look at the strengths of the individual. Look at what they're able to have accomplished in their work so far. And if they are new to the employment world, what they have accomplished in their schooling. I mean, what have they accomplished in their life? Just because someone doesn't have a degree doesn't mean they're not the right person for the job. So look at all the different pieces of your workforce, and what do you really want to have at the table? How can you make your workforce stronger? The different generations are how you can make your workforce stronger.
That's great. Great advice for the employer. Now let's look at the employee. Sometimes the unthinkable happens and might get downsized, or for whatever reason, there might be some reorganization going on. A person may lose their position and they find themselves without a job. And it can happen to anyone at any level.
Yes.
You just didn't see it going. You didn't see that coming. finding a job then becomes a full-time job, does it not?
Very true.
Tell us, what do you do? Give us a game plan for that person who's looking.
The best way to get started is to get online. And when I say that, a lot of people go, ugh. And I think that the frustration is, and I feel it too, is that there are so many different job boards out there. Where do I start? Where do I start? And this is another place where actually the state of Ohio has been very proactive. And they have a website called ohiomeansjobs.com. That website is what's called an aggregate job board. By that, what I mean is that it goes out to all those other places where jobs are, and they bring jobs back to Ohio Means Jobs. So then you're able, instead of having to go find the jobs, it has done the work for you. And then you are able to look at those jobs that actually match what you're looking for. The other thing about this system is that you can actually register in Ohio Means Jobs, post your resume. All the employers in the state of Ohio have access to Ohio Means Jobs, so you can go in as an employer and pull resumes. So you can actually be found, just because you have your resume out there. And many people that I've talked to have done that, have had a resume posted, and an employer has found them. They're a qualified person. So as a job seeker, that's always where I say get started, is get on ohiomeansjobs.com, start looking. But then you really want to get your skills refreshed because, you have been working. And when you're working, you don't think about having a good resume, and you don't think about how to answer interview questions, and you don't think about how job search has changed. What we see now in job search certainly isn't the same thing we saw 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We worked with a company recently that was laying off, and all of their employees had all been there longer than 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So think about the job. When they were looking for work, they walked into a company and said, "Hey, I know Charlie," or "I'm Charlie's son," and they would be given a job. So the experience of doing a job search is a foreign language to them. And I think that's where a lot of people get stressed out. They don't speak the language, and it has changed. So come into your Ohio Means Job Center. No matter where you are, every county in the state of Ohio has an Ohio Means Job Center. So this is something that you can take advantage of no matter where you're at. Of course, Stark and Test County, we're the best. Yeah,
of course.
plug. But, any Ohio Means Job Center, no matter where you are, you can use those services, and they're free. And it's a great way when you're not sure where to start. Let us point you in the right direction. It's not going to cost you anything. Frankly, I think we do a lot better job on resumes than a lot of organizations that you have to pay for the resume.
Right.
And it's free. Why not take advantage of this system that's out there for you that you paid for again?
Where are you physically located so people can come see you?
We are located in Stark County at 822 30th Street Northwest. It's the old Giant Eagle building. We are in the 30th Street Center Plaza. And then in Tuscarawas County, we're in New Philadelphia at the old Monroe Mall I said it too fast, at 1220 Monroe Street in New Philadelphia.
Great. And is there a phone number where people can reach you as well?
Yeah, they can call us at 330-433-9675 in Stark County, and in Tuscarawas County, it's 330-364-9777.
Let's talk about the resume. Resumes used to be, you bought a certain kind of paper. It was really, really good, had a little watermark on it. You made sure your name was really big and a phone number, and then year by year, everything you did going back to high school.
And the watermark had to be the right way.
Exactly.
Yes.
What does a resume look like now? Because when you talk about posting your resume online and somebody that you don't even know about finds you and offers you a job, this is like, the future. Mind blown.
Yeah.
So, talk about a resume today.
Well, two of the things that are a big change on resumes that used to be standard fare and you always had on your resume were, at the top, you'd have your objective. And then at the bottom would be references available upon request.
Let me just stop you right there. That always seemed so silly to me because objective is, I want a job.
Yes.
Isn't that everybody's objective? And then references available upon request. Well, if you don't, of course they want them. Why not just give them to them? So
exactly.
It just, those two things always seemed funny to me.
Yes. They're just a waste of space. And I think that for a lot of resumes, people use them just as that, to make their resume look full and balanced, they would add that on there. Those are just so not necessary anymore. And a lot of times the employer will look at a generic objective and go, yeah, nope, not interested, and put it in the trash. I think one of the things that is so important about resumes now is that you cannot have a generic resume. You can't have one resume that you use to apply for every single job, because there's number one, there are a lot of people applying for those jobs, and number two, if they're generic, if you don't care enough to make the resume specific to the job you're applying for, then why does the employer want to waste their time talking to you? You don't,
and it doesn't even show that they cared enough to get to know you a little bit better.
Yes.
If they're applying to my position and they're applying to 6 or 7 other positions, I'd like to know that I'm special to them in some way. It's almost like that golden rule. Treat somebody the way you'd want to be treated. Put yourselves in the employer's position. How would they feel if I go in and not really know that much about them?
Yeah, and one of the things that a lot of times that people will put like in a cover letter with their resume is that, they're willing to take any job. Well, as an employer, it's not my job to figure out what you want to do.
Right.
That is like a 100% you're going to get your resume and your cover letter thrown in the trash, because you have to know what it is you're looking for. You can't fit in every single position. So why say, oh, well, you decide. Anything that you have open, I'll take. No, you don't want to do that. Now what you have at the top of a resume is basically a summary of qualifications. A few lines that you're putting together in paragraph form that explain your qualifications and what you're looking for in a better, more detailed way. Then having a skills section, so pointing out those specific things that you are able to do. And then having your information about the past jobs that you've had. You don't want to go back more than 10 to 15 years, depending on, your job. And something I do hear from a lot of people is, well, I've only had one job. We were just talking about the place that they've been there for 30 years.
Right.
There's different styles of resumes now. So you can do a more what's called functional resume that's more skill-based. So that resume is going to have, that past employer, but you're going to focus more on the skills.
Got more I need to ask you about this, but we need to take a break. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.